Welcome back to Prison Architect. It's the tutorial series here. We are going to start with the first couple of rooms that your prisoners are going to enter upon arrival at your prison. So, the first one, generally speaking, is reception. Now, this is an area where you want to have a metal detector as well as several guards, probably. A dog is actually a good idea because it will help sniff out contraband. This is your first line of defense to try and stop inmates from bringing stuff into the facility that you don't want them bringing. Now, when the prisoners arrive, they are going to get dropped off in deliveries. So it's a good idea to have your delivery room somewhere in the neighborhood of where you actually want to pick them up to bring them into the building. So once they are dropped off, a guard is going to exit the building, go get the prisoner, and bring them back in. They're going to do a strip search, and if they don't have any laundry, they're basically just going to put their dirty clothes back on and then get escorted to their cell. So you want to have a, where is it? Laundry room with plenty of capacity so that you've got clothes ready to go for them when they arrive. Now, again, it's a good idea to have a guard stationed up here. I usually like to have a regular guard, a canine, and an armed guard, just so you've got plenty of firepower up here. But you also want to make sure that you have lots of extra staff available in terms of your number of guards, because if you bring in, say, 20 inmates and you don't have enough guards to go help check them in and still cover the rest of the assignments and needs throughout your facility, it's going to create problems. For example, if you are using a door control system and you've got servos that are set up to allow prisoners or guards to access certain parts of the facility, if one of these guards has to come up here to check in inmates, now nobody is manning those remote doors, and you're going to have problems. Another thing to factor into consideration, if you have multiple buildings, at least in your plans, you can set deployment so that, like here you see I have this room designated as minimum security. That means only minimum security inmates can go through reception and get checked into this building. If an insane inmate was to arrive at this point and I didn't have another place for them to go, they wouldn't be able to enter this building essentially. If you've got multiple buildings, you can set up a minimum security building with that reception area designed or designated for those inmates. You could have maximum security, medium, etc. So use deployment to try and filter out the kinds of inmates that you want coming into that building. And now you can see, like up here, I've got criminally insane rooms designated. That is basically so if I've got minimum security inmates that come into this building, because that's all I'm allowing for intake, they can eventually go crazy. And this gives me a space where I can move them if I need to, but for them to get in here in the first place, they've got to be minimum security, is how that would work. So keep that in mind. Now, again, make sure you've got a metal detector in here. That is absolutely crucial, and it's a good idea to have a dog as well. Now, the reception area, in terms of what you actually need for it, um, let me find it here. It's got to be indoors. It has to have an office desk, a chair, and a table. The office desk is obviously for somebody to hypothetically be sitting there to check somebody in. The tables are for the laundry and stuff to go on, as well as for your oh my goodness for your guards to set stuff on, etc. But the general I believe functionality there is for the laundry to sit on. So that is the reception area. The size of it doesn't matter, but it's usually a good idea to have it at least be 4 spaces wide so that you've got room for tables on each side, the desk off to one side, and then plenty of room for foot traffic down the middle. The holding cell is the other room that I'm going to focus on in this tutorial because early on in the grants, one of them makes you have a reception. Actually, it doesn't make you do a reception, but a holding cell is a big one. And shower is also included there, and I like to do them both in the same general area. The reason is if I have an inmate, for whatever reason, if I had a medium security inmate and I wanted to keep him away from everyone else, or maximum security, for example, If I don't have a cell for them to go into, they will be placed into the holding cell. Now, if you're going to have people that are in there for a long time, you've got to have a bed. It's a good idea to also probably put some things in there to keep them entertained, like a radio or a television, because if they're in there for too long, they will riot, especially if they are like maximum security and a little bit unstable. So keep that in mind. Now, there are some things that you can place into the holding cell to improve the quality. Let me find it here. Where'd it go? Come on now. Oh, here it is. Beds, shower heads. Now, I don't have the shower heads in the holding cell, but I have access to the shower heads. So I don't know if that exactly counts as far as quality here, but the fact that they have access to the shower, if they're in there for a while, they can maintain decent hygiene by just stepping into the shower. Obviously, you need drains for that. You can actually put a phone booth in there that will increase that. Beds or bunk beds, a table will help. TVs, a pool table, you can even put a phone booth in there. So there's a lot of stuff. You can put any item in any room. The general idea here is think about who's going to be in there and how important it is for you to entertain them while they are in there. Another thing that is actually a pretty good idea for the holding cell is a barred wall, at least on the sides where you would have guards available to actually see in there. So if I had this to where it was, the reception was down here and the holding cell opened this way, for example, this barred wall would not only allow my guards to see into the holding cell, they could also tase somebody through the barred wall, which is a huge advantage because if you've got a legendary inmate in there that's going bonkers, your guards can tase him, and then once he's down, they open the door and go in and take care of business. So those are the general tips that I would give you as far as the holding cell, but I do want to also cover, just to make sure that we do, the actual requirements. It's got to be 5x5. It has to be inside. You have to have a toilet and a bench. So this basically up along here gives me the bare minimum. Beds are probably a good idea. I like to have a radiator in there just to keep it warm. If you're doing the temperature option in your playthrough, that's probably not a terrible idea. However, that might not apply if you're dealing with maximum security inmates, because anything that's in there, if they go bonkers, they're just going to damage it, maybe even figure out how to use it as a weapon, that sort of thing. The one last note that I will give in regards to holding cells is that inmates will not dig out of a holding cell. So I guess that's kind of noteworthy. Not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. So that's it for this one. I hope this was helpful. Please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment below, and we'll see y'all next time.